All right, well, let's welcome into the program our next guest, Mr. Brian McLeod, the owner, the big cheese, the end-all, be-all of the late model publications in the world. How you, sir?
I'm doing great, Webb. How you doing?
I like when we have shows like this because we just keep trucking along, and it's this show's going well.
I hear you. That's what we did all night long. We trucked along here towards home from Ohio. We did the North-South 100 there at Florence and drove 3 hours north and covered the Jim Dunn Memorial at Midway Speedway. So it was a reminder that I flunked high school geography to go 3 hours north first and then turn around and come home.
Well, I don't know if you got to catch the first part of our program, but we had Mr. James Essex on, and I want to get your take on the Owens-O'Neill deal. Where would you stand in that as far as what O'Neill did and what Jimmy didn't do? I guess is protect the bottom, but what would you say happened there?
Well, I think you hit it. Well, let's hope Jimmy ain't listening, but I think you hit it pretty close there. I mean, he did leave an opening, and I think he knows that he did, and Don's an aggressive race car driver, and we all know that. And I don't think that there's anybody in that field that probably wouldn't have made that same move, to be honest with you. With all due respect to Don, I've seen him do worse, and yeah. That one was on the O'Neill scale of aggressiveness. I felt like that was relatively light in comparison to some things. Again, with all due respect to him, that's the way he drives. That's why we watch him. He's an awesome race car driver, and we watch him until we think he did something wrong, and then we want to pick on him for it. I don't think there's anybody out there that wouldn't have made that same move. If they're not out there to cradle infants. And I thought it was a quick move. Unfortunately, it looked to me like Jimmy had to come off the throttle a little bit at a time when it allowed Don to be on the throttle, and that was probably the difference. As they went down into turn one on that kind of racetrack, a little bit of contact back and forth, it's almost a given.
And Webb, let's keep in mind, too, people look at the damage on Jimmy's car, and they forget that those are just aluminum sheet metal bodies. And he did it probably in a spot on the car where there was absolutely nothing there. So that is very minimal damage to his car.
And I also after hearing Brian say it, I wonder if O'Neill wasn't just surprised that opening was there, and maybe that was part of the getting into him.
I
wouldn't think. Well, I wouldn't think it would. I just don't think I would expect to see that opening.
Well, and any opening on a racetrack like that too, Webb. I mean, that track was black. It rubbered up, and it ended up being really, really hard to pass. I mean, it was hard to even get up next to somebody in the B main, let alone halfway through the feature.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. We don't want to beat this horse to death too bad.
Because it's all something to talk about, Webb.
That's true. Well, Brian, what is we're 3/4 of the way through the season, basically. What is the overall health and what you've seen and all the races you've been to this year of the dirt late model sport?
Well, sometimes I get accused of painting too rosy of a picture here on this stuff, but with what this country went through economically 3 or 4 years ago, and for this sport to be doing what I see it doing across the country, I'm just actually probably shocked that we didn't get hurt a whole lot worse. It's probably, I've done this 30-some years, and it's probably the first time I've seen dirt racing really feel the hurt this bad after the recession or during the recession that we're currently in, however you want to look at it. But I feel like it's still showing strength. We had a standing room only crowd there at Florence. Most of the big races are drawing. If we are experiencing any hurt that's noticeable, it's at the weekly track level and sometimes at the regional level. But the big events, and we need those to lead the industry. They're doing fine, and the rest of it just involves hard work and promotion. And as long as we keep doing that, I don't see any reason why it won't turn around when the economy does.
Well, it's Cedar Point.
Webb, when things are really bad, people want to, they want to be uplifted, they want to be entertained, and I think they will tend to spend their money on entertainment, even in times of recession. Look at the movie industry through the 30s and the Great Depression. It flourished.
Exactly.
now Cedar Lake, I said Cedar Point, but Cedar Lake was the same. It was wall-to-wall people, and that was probably one of the very neatest experiences in racing I've ever had, as far as the hype and electricity and actually hear a roaring crowd. You've been up there, I'm assuming, Brian.
Yeah, I've been up there. I drove up there 2 or 3 different times. Made that month-long drive from North Carolina, and it's a wonderful place. Great track surface, great track, and good people up there. And the fans are really into it. It's awesome.
I was just taken back, and everybody hears about the pre-race introductions. The lights go out, the spotlights, the glow stick deal, and and I was working, so it literally felt to me almost like a Super Bowl moment, or almost like
there you go,
like a bowl game moment, as far as like a halftime show or something. It was very cool.
Yeah, it'll make the hair stand up on your arms, and that's what we need to do a little bit more. I'm not saying sacrifice the racing in terms of giving them a show that's non-racing related or anything, but if you can put goosebumps on people's arms, they're going to buy a ticket and come back next time, and that kind of show does that. Now,
with the magazine, you guys cover as much as you guys can on a monthly basis, and you seem to get everything in. What's been something this year that you've covered that's stood out?
Stood out? Well, we had I had a Neesmith race, believe it or not, at Albany Motor Speedway in Georgia that was just probably as good a race as I've seen all year long. And, off the top of my head, it's really hard to remember them all, but surprisingly, or I wouldn't say surprisingly, but perhaps it's a good thing to know this, but regional events and we got away from the big shows. My wife and I did, traveling around the country, and got away from the larger shows and started going to some of the smaller regional, maybe a little less or a little more obscure type events around the country, and it's nice to see crowds at those shows and good car counts and good racing. I'd like to see more people sitting there watching it, but it doesn't matter how many are sitting in the grandstand. You always want more, but it's really cool to see that the best racing in the country sometimes isn't always at the major shows.
And that leads me into my next question, and it's just a question. Obviously, we need to cover the big races. Obviously, we have to have our Bloomquist and our Moyer. We have to have all that in the north-south. But, I mean, with your readership is probably more at these regional shows, more at the less spectacular shows, I guess some people claim. It kind of probably makes a little more sense to go to those races, I guess, if that's where your readers are at.
Yeah, well, we try to. I'm not sure about the readership, but we try to visit as many different tracks and as many different events as we can, and just get out. I mean, the cool part about it is we had people show up at Florence that had never seen the magazine before, and you can view that as a negative, or you can do it the way I prefer to do it. My wife and I prefer to do it, and that's look at it as a positive. If there's still people out there that don't know about Late Model Illustrated, then that's a good reason for us to keep working and stuff. That never disappoints me. It actually makes me happy because it tells me there's a bigger market out there for not only the magazine but for all of us.
Yeah, you got more work to do. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
More work, more driving. But she did the driving home this weekend, so that helped a little bit there. And we got home. She went to work in the office, and I took a nap. So.
Well, I happen to think that you guys do the best job out there covering in print, especially. The sport of late model racing. Is there any specials this time around, or anything going on in the magazine that the fans need to know about?
Next issue, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a Summer Nationals cover, and Paul Fletcher was there for probably 18 or 20 events. Great writer. I've seen the coverage. It's at the printer. It should be on the way soon. And he really put some effort in to cover it a little bit different than we have in the last 2 or 3 years, and I think people will like that. We're excited about it. There's a lot of little news stories in the back, probably a little more than we've had. And the people are telling us they enjoy the columns and they enjoy those little stories that get people in the magazine that might not be there otherwise. And for me personally, that's probably the coolest part of what we do is to find a guy in the corner of the pit area that maybe has never been in a national magazine and let him tell his story and then get to relate it to the readers. That's really the fun part for me.
Well, Brian, I appreciate you stopping by here on In the Dirt. Always a pleasure to speak with you, especially when I see you guys out at races and such. When can we have you back on? Anytime.
You can have me anytime you want. The only one you can't get on here is my wife. She won't do this stuff, but you can call me anytime you want. It's fun. I know the show's growing, and I see the numbers growing on it, and you work hard at it, and I wish you the best with it.
Well, we just, like I said, it's at hobby stage right now, and if we can entertain anybody, then excellent. If not, oh well, what do you do?
Yeah, there you go. It's fun. Keep it fun. That's what it's all about. Our writers and photographers call, and we have a ton of help from some of the best people in the industry, and the one thing that we try to stress to them is to have fun at it. Ain't none of us going to get rich probably doing this stuff, but if you can have a good time and be around people that you enjoy being around, which is the racers and the teams and the fans and the sponsors, then everything else takes care of itself.
Get rich? I'm still trying to figure out how to get paid doing it. Well, thank you, Brian. We'll get a hold of you later. Brian McLeod, Late Model Illustrated, and LateModelIllustrated.com.
Yeah, LateModelIllustrated.com, and you can find us on Facebook and website and the whole deal.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Brian.
All right. Thank you, Webb.